Well, hello, friends, and welcome back to episode number 4 of YMCast of season number 3. I hope you are doing very well, and I hope you are all having a very good week. Welcome to February. January seems to have gone rather quick, I must admit, and it seems to have been a lot less interesting than the last couple of months have been, but we're still in lockdown. So, as always with YMCast, we start within prayer. But as we have now entered February, February is LGBT History Month. So our prayers today are led by the Reverend Robin Fox, who is a minister in the South Cheshire Circuit.
Loving God, source of all creation, you endowed all people with inherent dignity and worth, and you invite us to treat each other in ways that recognise, affirm and celebrate that dignity and that worth. God of David and Jonathan, and of Ruth and Naomi, we give you thanks for all forms of human love, and we are sorry for the times when we have not loved our neighbours as we ought, especially our LGBTQIA+ neighbours. Teach us to honour and celebrate their gifts, and help us to create a world in which lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people are loved, accepted and celebrated. Help us to work with you to create a world where people are free from injustice, free from violence, and free from discrimination. In the name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Robin, for those. During the COVID-19 pandemic and during lockdown, we've heard all sorts of stories of what the different people around the Methodist Church have been getting up to. And today our story comes from the island of Jersey and comes from Captain Paul Curtis. Paul has been involved in aviation for the entirety of his life, and like many pilots, he's lost his job through the pandemic. And he is now part of a network of people who are bringing medical supplies and PPE from one side of the world to another. So here is this interview conducted between Captain Paul and the Reverend Jenny. What you will also see is that this was an audio interview. And so, to save you from having a black screen, I'm sending you on a little adventure back to my home in Stamford and a very special friend of mine who had a bit of a snow day recently. Hope you enjoy the interview.
I'm Jenny Pathmaraja, and I'm sat here with Paul Curtis, who's an airline pilot for a very interesting outfit. Now, Paul, you've had quite an interesting year this year, like many pilots, but yours has been interesting for quite a different way.
Yes, it has. Yeah, it's been a very up and down year. The job I originally was going to do, of course, didn't happen due to COVID. And so I was out of work for a while where I didn't think I would be. And then all of a sudden, due to, COVID as well, the cargo industry was boomed. And there are quite a lot of jobs to be had in transporting cargo around the world.
But you've been a cargo pilot before. Cargo is where your heart really is, isn't it?
I've certainly done a lot of cargo. I find it less stressful than flying passengers. Let's put it that way.
It's because you've often told me they don't turn up late. They're not drunk. They don't talk back to you.
Well, that's all of those things. Yes, and the cargo doesn't demand to be within 10 or 15 minutes of catching a taxi at the other end.
No, it's just the first officer who's normally doing that.
It's something like that, yeah.
So, cargo pilots, what do they actually fly? What are you flying?
What, in terms of cargo or aeroplanes are you talking?
Oh, well, both.
Well, just about any aeroplane could be converted into a cargo aeroplane.
But what do you fly?
The ones I've been flying for the last 20 years are Boeing 747-400s and the later variant, the Dash 8. The one I'm flying at the moment is a 400. Some of them are dedicated freighters and some of them were passenger jumbos that got converted into freighters.
COVID has impacted every single country on the earth. And Europe and Britain and here in Jersey, we've all needed vast amounts of PPE, and I guess it's needed to get from A to B, and someone needs to do that.
Yeah, that's obviously what we're doing at the moment. The uptake in cargo flying is a combination of various factors to do with COVID, but obviously PPE, medical supplies, masks, all those kinds of things produced quite often in China and Asian countries, and they have to be brought to Europe and the UK. And I don't know how long a ship takes to come from a port like Hong Kong, but considerably longer than a 747 does. I can assure you of that. But, so it takes us. If you flew direct from, let's say, Hong Kong or Shanghai direct to London, it's probably something like 11 hours to 12 hours. But the cargo company I'm working for splits up that journey. So one crew will go out from Kazakhstan, pick up the PPE or the medical supplies in China, then fly it back to Kazakhstan, which takes roughly about the same sort of time, about 12 hours. Then another crew will get on and bring it into Europe, and then either stay in Europe or fly back to Kazakhstan.
And you've made us a little audio diary about what that's like, what a typical flight is, haven't you?
I did, yeah. I just a few little voice memos from various different parts on the flight. Yeah.
So we look forward to hearing that. Thank you so much, Paul, for your time. Thank you.
That's my pleasure. Thanks. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. My name is Paul Curtis, and I'd like to welcome you to this little insight into the work I'm doing bringing medical supplies such as PPE from China to Europe with a cargo company based out in Astana, Kazakhstan. The flight today is on a Boeing 747-400 converted freighter, meaning it used to be a passenger aircraft. Well, that's enough of that sort of thing. It's been a strange old year for everybody, but especially for the aviation industry, obviously with passenger fleets being grounded all over the world. And what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of the cargo of the world used to fly in the belly holds of those passenger aircraft. So now with those all grounded, there's a huge market for cargo freighters. Add to that the COVID problem itself and all the medical supplies that have to be coming in from usually from China and elsewhere. They have to be ferried across the world. And of course, the vaccinations, they will also have to be moved around the world as well. So there's actually been quite a boom in cargo. I've been doing flights for the last couple of months from China to Europe, in places including Spain, London Heathrow, Belgium, Frankfurt. And tonight, we're going to be doing a flight to Budapest in Hungary. The flight starts in the hotel room, which is where I am now, and we're giving an information pack, which has got the flight plan on it. It's got notices of things like things that aren't working at airports and various other things that we need to know about, and a weather pack, so we can have a look at the weather. And the weather in Budapest tonight is it's a little bit grey, light winds, but there is a possibility of some fog at our time of arrival. So we might have to consider doing an auto land when we arrive there. The flight time is 4 hours, 49 minutes, and we have 111 tons of cargo tonight, probably all medical supplies. And the fuel we're going to be taking for this fairly shortish flight is 73 tons, so quite a lot of fuel. Jumbo jets do tend to use quite a lot of fuel. For all of you who've got little experience of Kazakhstan, or your only experience of Kazakhstan is watching Borat, then if you ever visit, you're in for a bit of a surprise, because it's an absolutely beautiful city here with fantastic architecture. It's very modern. At the minute, it's very cold. I'm not seeing it at its best. It's completely covered in frost and snow at the moment, and the temperature out there at the minute, I think, is about -13. last week it was minus 25, so I'm not complaining too much today. Anyway, I'll get back to you a little bit later on when I'm at the aircraft. I'm now stood by the aircraft, obviously being dwarfed by a giant 747. I'm on the apron at Nur Sultan. It's minus 13 out here. It's pretty cold. There's light sort of snow, almost like little crystals of snow blowing around the aircraft, and looks like the fueling's been done, and I'm just going to do a walk around to check that everything is where it should be and there's no obvious leaks on the aircraft and no panels missing. I'm expecting a departure on time this evening, or this morning I should say, as it's this evening in the UK, but it's morning here. And it looks like the snow is starting to get a little bit thicker as I speak. There's a little bit of icing all over the wings, so that we're going to have to de-ice the aircraft and then apply a layer of anti-icing to make sure that nothing adheres to the wings and the aircraft for takeoff. So I'll just begin my walk around and get back to you when I'm back on the plane. So I'm now on the main deck, the main cargo deck of the aircraft, and as expected it is completely jam-packed from floor to ceiling with pallets. They're all covered in black PVC, so it's impossible to see what's in there, but I've just had a word with the loadmaster and he's confirmed it is all medical supplies going into Eastern Europe. And so I'm just having a look down, just checking that all the cargo locks are in place and it's all safely secured. As it's already come from China and we're just taking it on, I would expect them to be pretty safe. A word on the icing. We've got quite a bit of frosting on the wings, so what we have to do, as I mentioned, is de-ice the aircraft, usually just wings and tail when it's fairly light, and then apply a layer of anti-icing fluid to keep the precipitation off. There is some light snow. And we check what are called holdover tables, which give us a time limit of how long that anti-icing is good for. As a rule of thumb, something I would be expecting in these kind of conditions, somewhere between about 40 minutes to an hour, as it's quite light snow at the moment. But I will need to check the tables to be absolutely sure, and it depends on what kind of icing fluid they've used as well. I'll get back to you later on in the flight. So here we are now in the cruise at 34,000 feet. I hope you can hear me. It's kind of noisy up here. There's a combination of air conditioning packs, engine noise, and the sound of the air rushing past the front of the aircraft. At the moment we're doing Mach decimal 8.6, which is 86% of the speed of sound. It's indicating 300 knots, which gives us a true airspeed, because the air's thinner up here, of almost 500 knots. And then we've got a 30 knot headwind, which is giving us a ground speed of 465 knots. Our current position is about 40 miles south of a place called Penza in southern Russia. Talking to Samara Control. It's a beautiful clear night. I can see the constellation Orion just ahead of me, and in fact there's quite a lot of meteorite activity tonight. I just saw one streak through Orion, and it's probably about the 10th or 11th I've seen so far in the last sort of 15 minutes. The crew with me today, there's 3 pilots, myself, Captain Fred Planet, and First Officer Joe Kirk. In the back we've also got the loadmasters and the engineers. They're all taking a rest at the minute.
we're in the cruise, so there's not much for us to do up here. We basically have to monitor the aircraft, make sure it's going in the right direction and all the systems are working. We talk to air traffic control and monitor the radios and keep an eye on the weather, which it looks clear and there's absolutely nothing on the weather radar this evening. It's a beautiful clear night. It's currently 1:48 in the morning UK time, and we should be arriving in Budapest in approximately 3 hours, or just under, well, about 2.5 hours in fact. Fred's currently taking a rest, and it's me and Joe at the controls. One of the other things in Russia at this time of year is to keep an eye on the outside temperature. The reason being, it gets very cold, and the current outside temperature of the aircraft, or the atmospheric, is minus 62 degrees outside, when the total air temperature, which is the temperature of the air on the aircraft itself, heated by obviously kinetic activity through the air, is minus 30. The reason we have to keep an eye on that is our fuel temperature, if it gets too low, can start to get waxy. In southern Russia it's not such a problem. Over Siberia I have seen it come up with a warning in the past. Usually you get a warning about minus 40. The temperature gets waxy in around about minus 47 for the fuels that we're using. At the moment the fuel temperatures are a nice minus 28 degrees. So some of the things after we've on the ground, after with the de-icing, it's a lot busier at that time. So once the aircraft's de-iced, we then start the engines and taxi out. One of the great things about the 747-400 is the taxiing. Someone described it once to me as sort of sitting on the roof of your house and then trying to drive it down the street. It is a wonderful thing to do. One of the great moments in any pilot's career, I think, is taxiing the 747 for the first time. As there's 3 of us today, we usually split the workload up, so one will be flying, one will be doing the radio and doing all the paperwork. So anyway, that's pretty much as I can think about telling you at the moment, and I will get back to you again when we're on the ground and unloading. So here we are, finally arrived at Budapest on a fairly cloudy, cool morning. It's about 4 degrees here at the moment. We're on the cargo apron. They've just started unloading the aircraft with the high loaders. The fuel truck has attached. As once the aircraft's unloaded, we're now going to take the aircraft empty and position it to Brussels, where another crew will get on board and take it back to Kazakhstan. So hopefully now from here the cargo will go onto lorries that will take it either to distribution centres or directly to the hospitals that need the medical supplies in Hungary or maybe other parts of Eastern Europe. So we can say job done at that point. Well, hopefully this has been a nice, interesting insight into what's happening with, and certainly in the cargo world, to do with COVID. Captain Paul Curtis signing off from Budapest.
Paul, you shared with us a snippet into a typical flight from Kazakhstan, having picked up all the PPE and the plane and taking it over to Europe. I listened to it, and I have some questions. I have some serious questions.
Okay.
So you said that you do a walk around the plane to check if there are any leaks. That alarms me. Mm. What exactly are you doing?
Well, literally just to check the the serviceability of the aircraft to make sure that
Nobody wants to hear that.
well, I think they'd be even more alarmed if nobody checked. I mean, there's at least two people check. You've got a ground engineer who'll do a walk around of the aircraft and service the aircraft, put hydraulic fluid in, oil, etc.
Oh, like I do with my car with a windscreen wiper fluid.
Yeah, sort of like
Do
that.
planes have windscreen wiper fluids?
They have windscreen
they have
wipers. There are some rain repellent you can spray onto the screen at times.
Oh, I never.
But usually we use the windscreen wipers when there's already fluid on the aircraft.
True, yeah.
But yeah, so the ground engineer will do a walk around and sign the technical log and do any necessary refilling of fluids. And one of the pilots will do a similar thing. They will just walk around and make sure
you've not missed anything.
Yeah, make sure that nothing's been missed, that all the wheels, all the tyres are still have got good tread on, and checking for leaks. Any obvious leaks will be on the floor normally, or dripping down the side of the gear or somewhere else.
And you're doing that in Kazakhstan, and it's quite cold out there.
Yes,
that's going to be grim.
At this time of year, it's very cold, and I'm not looking forward to it when it's minus 30.
Now, you talked about de-icing. I mean, most of us have had to de-ice our car at least once or twice this winter, but de-icing a plane, what's that about?
It's a lot of a bigger deal than just de-icing.
You're going to need more than one can.
Yeah, they have kind of like big sort of water cannons. Best description. A guy on a cherry picker with a large sort of gun,
or it could be a woman.
Yes, it could be a woman pointing at the wings and the tail. Usually,
but why just the wings and the tail?
Well, they're the most important parts in terms of generating lift and control. The fuselage. If there is snow and ice on the fuselage of any thickness, that will have to be de-iced as well. But we can accept frosting on the fuselage, not so much the upper of the wings, though. That's where all the lift is generated. It's not so much the wing beneath your wings that gets you airborne, but the low pressure above them.
So next time I'm stuck at Gatwick Airport and I'm huffing and puffing because my flight's delayed because it's got to be de-iced, I should be thinking, it's not a bad thing.
No, it's an essential thing for flight safety to de-ice the aircraft, and then if it's still snowing or there's frost conditions, then you put another layer of anti-icing fluid over the top. So you've got. I
need some of that for my car.
It could be a 2-step process, yeah, and then you have a certain amount of time that will hold over and protect you from the precipitation or freezing.
So do you ever have that done to your plane, and then you jump into the flight deck and you're like, get out everybody, I've only got 20 minutes to get to the runway? Does that happen?
Oh yes, that happens quite a bit.
Do you honk your horn in anger?
It's not so much. Yeah, it can be fraught, especially at busy airports. And passenger planes probably have even bigger problems with this than we do. I mean, most of the time we're going out at night when there's not at airports that aren't always that busy, but it's a lot of stressful fun, let's call it, to try and get out of some airports within the holdover times.
You talked about doing a walk around in the hold where everything was being strapped down, and you couldn't really see because it was covered in black. But whose responsibility is to make sure that that's all secure? And I guess, I've flown on quite a few planes when the stewardess or the hostess said to me, "Excuse me, madam, you need to move seats for the balancing of the plane." And I imagine if a small little ATR that's going to make a difference, it'll make a difference in a jumbo as well. Who's responsible? Yeah,
well, we have a loadmaster who will normally he's responsible for the whole loading, and he'll do a load sheet, which then comes to the captain, and that load sheet will be checked to make sure it's in the envelope, the operating envelope, in terms of balance and weight of the aircraft. He will also make sure that all the pallets are locked in position, and some have straps over the top if there's strange loads. And that has to be checked to make sure they've got the right amount of straps for the weight of the aircraft, because in turbulence, obviously, it moves around, or it can move around, so they need to be lashed down.
Yeah.
And then one of the pilots will double check that as well. They'll walk down and check all the locks are in position, and all the pallets look like they're sturdy and not going to collapse or anything like that. So there's usually a check and a double check.
When you were cruising at 30-something thousand feet, it was really noisy. Is it like that all the time in the flight deck?
Yeah, it's certainly in the cruise, yeah, and once you've got airborne, obviously on the ground it's much quieter. But even then, the packs can be quite noisy. The air conditioning pack.
What's an air conditioning pack?
It's it's a bit like your air conditioning that you might have at home. It sort of takes in air and either cools you down or warms you up, and goes through an air conditioning system. When you're up to 36,000 feet, you can't just open a window, so you have to cool down. So you have air coming in from usually from the bleed of the engines for hot air.
Now, you said you could see Orion and some other beautiful stars, but I guess flying at that height in the dark, you must have seen some astonishing things.
Yeah, I mean, there's one. I think one of the thing I remember the most was the first time I saw a moonrise that was orange, and because it came up like a large orange disc, and I had no idea what it was, and it's I thought it was some sort of UFO at first, and then I thought, no, it can't be. No, it's too far away, and then I thought it was the sun. And then I thought, no, it can't be the sun. It's not lighting anything up. So it was a bit of a mystery until eventually it sort of gradually got bigger and bigger and became a half circle and then a circle. And it sort of dawned on me what it was.
It's the moon.
It was the moon. Yeah, but it was all bright orange. You know?
And you've seen something called Elmo's Fire?
St. Elmo's Fire, yeah.
I got it right.
Yes, a kind of a sort of, it looks like a static discharge. You can make sort of lovely patterns across your windscreen, usually around areas of thunderstorms and that kind of thing in clouds.
And then when you landed in Europe and your job is done, does it give you a feeling of satisfaction, or how do you feel that you're helping deliver all this essential medical equipment to save lives all across Europe and here in Jersey? Yeah,
I mean, we always, I think, get a sense of satisfaction on completing any trip, but obviously, certainly with these trips we're doing, there's a lot more riding on it. The importance of it all really doesn't sort of weigh heavily until you kind of start thinking about it. You just, all we have to do is turn up, fly the plane, get it from A to B, and that's kind of it for us. But
I guess you're one cog in a very, very, very big machine, and it's very, very true. If everybody just plays their part, we can overcome this, and you're playing your part by flying all the PPE, and we need to do our part by wearing the masks that you're bringing us.
Exactly, yeah. We're playing our functions, part of a bigger infrastructure that's helping to fight this virus. And we don't want our doctors and nurses running out of PPE, so obviously the government has to put the purchases in, make the deals, or get somebody to do it,
and they're doing their small part.
Exactly, yeah. And then we end up being chartered to come and take to do the flying part of it.
Paul, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for talking to us, and thank you for sharing with us a little bit about your life and bringing all this essential PPE and medical supplies from China via Kazakhstan to Europe. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for that interview. It's always really interesting and amazing to hear what all these different people have been getting up to during the pandemic. Now, to finish up YMCast today, I'm bringing you something slightly different also. Many of you will know that I'm a musician, that I play the piano, the keyboard and the organ, and I'm a great lover of the works of Bach. So I'm presenting to you here a piano prelude written by Bach, entitled The Well-Tempered Clavier, except it's performed in a way a little different to how it's normally performed on the piano. I hope you enjoy, and I hope that you have a good week. As always, please get in contact with us using the hashtag YMCast. Cheerio.